I give you Mr. Tony Belas.
I wonder if you'll still be clapping in 20 minutes. 10. Okay, well I thought we're having a captive audience here. We'd start with highlights from the Daystate brochure for 2013. And then I thought, no, we're all mostly guys here. Why not do something that you never read? The Daystate handbook. Maybe in 5 languages, or maybe not. But then I thought, no, maybe you want to know a bit about the formation of Daystate itself. So I thought I'd give you a little pen picture of an English company that started up and never had a dull moment. It's not a straightforward story, as you'd expect of a company that starts, makes a few guns, but it had a few twists and turns on the way. So I hope you'll bear with me, indulge me in telling you the history of Daystate. So it started off with a bare-knuckle boxer, a gentleman called Don Lowndes, who was also a blacksmith, and he had a herd of deer, and he decided that when the deer got ill, he had to go and round them up, and he needed a tranquilizer gun. So he looked around for tranquilizer guns, and he didn't really find anything which was suitable for his purpose. So being the kind of guy he was, he made his own. And he made a tranquilizer gun, and he used a Bruno rifle. He cut the .22 barrel off, he put on a tranquilizer barrel, and they used a percussion cap, and they had different colours of percussion cap to actually fire the charge, to fire the dart. And this is the way that Daystate, it hadn't been called Daystate at this point, started up. They had a few near misses with it, with guns actually exploding in the shooter's hands. Notably, one exploded so completely that the guy was left holding the butt and everything else had completely dissolved. So they looked around for a slightly better system, and they came across in a Manchester gun shop an air pistol made by a guy called Joe Wilkins. And Joe Wilkins was an entrepreneur, and he did a little bit of engineering here and there, and he had made an air rifle from a Sharpinova. Anybody know a Sharpinova? You know the type. He'd found a piece of tubing, scaffolding tubing, and they'd welded it up and turned it into a PCP. Now, it had been done before in antiquity, but this is really the first time that PCPs had been used in popular modern times. And he developed this along with Joe Wilkins, and gradually they got the scaffolding company interested in putting some money into it. And at that point, the economy's turned, and the bank pulled the money, and they all went bust. So Wilkins moved away. Lowndes looked around for some investors, and he found the scaffolding company floundering, and they had nothing much else to do. So they formed a company. They named it Daystate. It was a name they picked off the peg. At the time, you could pick names from lists, and it was cheaper. So they went down the list, and they found this name, which looked quite nice, and they chose the name Daystate. And they formed a company, and they actually formed the company in 1978. They made these hand-built, quite agricultural rifles, but they were in a kind of a sports car market. They were in a hobby market, and they were making these hand-built rifles that were costing a lot of money. And one of the things I remember around the time, I wasn't in the company, but I do remember being around it and hearing that you know, the founding fathers of the company would go around the shops, and people would say, it costs how much? You need what to fill it? Go away. So they really got nowhere for the first 8 years. And then later on, a gentleman named Barry McCraw took one of these early PCPs and turned it into a field target rifle. And the field target had only just started, and it was the preserve of the Varrock 77. It was dominating. Everybody had one. And he took a basic PCP, put on a outrageous 18 power scope on top of it, and went away and just basically destroyed everybody who he came in touch with. And then the question was the same. How much are they, and what do I need to fill it? So it was the same question in a different tone, and they sold as many as they could make. So that's the history of Daystate to this day. Where are we going for the future? Well, we have the Airwolf. We did the Airwolf 303, pretty radical gun, I hope you agree. Early last year, we launched it in Scotland at a castle. We'll hear a bit more about Scotland and castles in it later on. And that rifle was intended as a flagship rifle. We were following, actually, because we were involved in the Italians, we were following the mould of MV Augusta. We couldn't do an iPhone where you make 20 million, stick them in a warehouse, nobody knows about them, and launch it, and they're all right. we didn't have the resources. So we decided to do a flagship rifle where we would make a handful. If they all went wrong, at least we could deal with a few rather than a lot. It wouldn't kill the company. And of course the 303 was massively stressing the components that we wanted to use later on as a mainstream rifle. So we were able to really test the rifle in its extreme state to see what went wrong. Actually nothing went wrong, which was a little bit of a surprise. We were expecting something to happen, but it worked very well. So 1 year on, we will be able to launch the Wolverine B-type. I have one here. Looks like any other Daystate, but it's not. It has a solid breech block, and all the components are slipped into it. With the breech block, taking the components in, all the engineering goes into the breech block. And there really was only one company, and it was an Italian company, that could produce the precision that we want. If anything goes wrong in the machining process, then the breech block is scrapped. So it has to be carefully controlled. But because of these tolerances and this precision and this design, it does really mean that the assembly time is radically reduced. So we were able to get assembly time to about a third of what it takes to do an Air Ranger. And that's important. Although the sum of its components are more expensive than Air Ranger, the labour saving is huge, and therefore we're able to bring the rifle in the market at a lower price than the outgoing rifle. So I've been shooting this rifle today. It's been absolutely fantastic. So I'm hoping that this is the rifle for the future. The rifles these days are developed with the American market first. Quite difficult to swallow for a British company because we tend to look at home first and then overseas second. But with the rise of the American market and the associated markets also following on America's lead, we focus on the American requirement first and then we tailor it to the British market. And this is why the Wolverine B has a bottle and the cylinder version will come out second. The British market desperately loves cylinders, doesn't really think much of bottles, and it's the other way around in America. So there we go. All right, well, thank you very much.